What does it really take to grow a business in the Middle East? Today, Sajjad breaks down his experience in scaling 40 plus brands across 12 countries and building high performance teams and staying ahead in a fast changing market. Welcome, Saj. How are you?
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure, mate. You good?
It's good to see you off the court.
I've been seeing you too much.
Well, you dress much better off the court, to be fair.
What a start. Mate, let's get straight into it. The biggest difference between the UK and the Middle East when it comes to consumer behaviour?
Yeah, look, I think customer experience, but quick commerce is just so different here versus the West, right? And I think the sad thing is quick commerce started in the 90s in Japan. UK led it early on. So I think in about the 2000s, you could order a dress on a Friday morning and get it for your Friday night out. But this industry is just disrupted so much. All of us use Noon 15 minutes. And then if you think about, you know, when you look at TikTok shops, for example, it's not even available in the GCC right now. So it's great in the US, great in the UK. But we're not a tier one country, even when it comes to iPhone launches, right? We're at the end. Amazon Now, we were the first market in the world to get Amazon Now. So that just tells you everything about how customer experience here is the first thing that you have to land, and you have to land it so well. You know, I still remember one of my old bosses 15, 20 years ago visited Dubai, and he said it's like being in the lap of the gods. The standards of customer experience out here, there's just nowhere like it in the world.
Why though?
Why? I think, look, there's competition, there's density. So if you look at Dubai, the UAE, you know, 3 of the biggest malls in the world, 3 of the top 10 malls in the world, most congested brand density in the world. The level of competition is so fierce. You know, competition is feral out here. So in order to differentiate yourself, you've got to deliver amazing experience, amazing service.
But they come here and knowing that it's a hard fight, it's a dog fight, it's just stiff competition. Yet they still come and they put themselves in that fight with a view that they maybe can lose everything because it's just such a hard dog fight. Like, so why come if you're a brand?
Yeah, I think there's probably sort of two layers to that. I think the first one is it's relatively easy to come here, right? Yeah. So I think, you know, this is a nation of builders. People who want to build things can come here quite easily. Yeah. There's a lot of friction that's been removed away. So to create a business, start a business, the funding economy, I don't know what it was like in Oz, and I never had that network in the UK, but just access to funding here just seems so different to other markets. So I think, one, it's relatively easy to come here. I think the other thing is that Dubai is now like a Tokyo, an LA, a New York. And if you want to build a brand in the region, this is where you need to build it.
Yeah. What's the surprising truth about running 650 brands in 13 countries throughout your career?
So we haven't run 650 brands, but yeah, I mean, where I work today, I work at a company called Azadia. We operate about 40 brands. Yeah. In about 12 different countries. So it was my first real exposure to what you call is a really regional business. Yeah. And I think, again, you know, when you compare that regionality and that localization to back at home, back at home, everyone just thinks the GCC or is just one big block and everyone's the same. But Kuwait, Qatar,
so
UAE,
different, right?
So different, so different. And I think that's just one thing that's very unique. But I think as you get into the detail of retail, not sort of, you know, overuse that sort of phrase, it is very precise, like really, really precise. You know, as a family, we always had retail shops in pharmacies, opticians, and the family had 14, 15 stores at any one point in those 2 or 3 different businesses. And the old man would always say it's all about location, location, location. So, you know, you get brought up on this sort of on these sort of key learnings. Yeah. But when you get into retail at scale, the precision around more feasibility, more location, the rotors that you need, the investment that you put in manpower planning, the product training, the store training, the people training, to actually deliver an amazing experience that sustains and then deliver value, profitability, takes surgical precision.
Are there one brand or one organization that stands out to you that do it really well consistently?
Well, I think there are great brands everywhere, right? In every sector. So whether you look at fashion, you look at sports, and the top brands are the top brands for a reason, right? So if you look at the top brands in the world, whether it is the Nikes, the Adidas, they all go through peaks and troughs, but the top 10 tend to stay the top 10 for a reason, right? It's because they always know their customer. Mm-hmm. They focus on their product and they continue to deliver their craft.
I moved here just over 10 years ago, and the probably biggest driver outside of personal reasons was to be a part of this digital wave that was hitting the Middle East, right? Because it probably hit Oz 2 or 3 years prior to me leaving. It probably hit the UK 2 or 3 years prior to hitting Oz, and it probably hit, the States a little bit earlier than that as well, right? So obviously trickling through the whole sort of globe. Mm-hmm. So coming here and expecting all these great things to happen, and then I think it was 2015, and it was like, where's the wave? Where's this digital adoption? It was almost like people were embracing these buzzwords and not necessarily having an understanding on how to execute on anything to do with digital transformation or anything like that, right? I kept on reading reports about, the e-commerce landscape in the Middle East is absolutely minuscule compared to what it is in the rest of the world, and there's so much room for growth and so forth. So how have you seen in your time in the region that transformation, that growth, and do you think we've actually sort of lived up to the hype in your time here, or do you think we've actually fallen short and not actually accomplished what we've actually should have?
Wow, so that's a lot of questions, right?
It is
in that one big question. So look, my experience with the GCC and e-commerce goes back 19 years. I've been in the region 11.
Yeah.
So 19 years ago, we came on holiday to Dubai, and I think our daughter was less than 1 year old. That's why I sort of remember it was 19, 20 years ago. And I ended up getting an interview with Souk.com at the time. And that's when they were still an eBay type business. And so it was a very long time ago, and Ronnie, who's the CEO of Souk, or Amazon, I should say, and we still bump into each other time to time. He offered me the job of sort of product owner to basically roll out Souk.com to Egypt and Saudi. And the market was tiny back then, right? It was tiny, and there was still a startup, and e-com was doing great in the UK, as you mentioned. And you're like, yeah, but you know what? You need to make it worth my while. Yeah. So it never came out 19 years ago. And then we had a couple of other conversations over the next few years, and it just never worked out. Out of the blue, I suddenly got a call from a company called Extra in Saudi, and this was around 2014. So we moved out we were living in Bahrain, but we moved out to Quba in Saudi. So the reason that I took that job in the end was, one, it was electronics. Yep. So electronics was traditionally the first category to go online, and they already had a website. Yeah. And we could talk a little bit about the difference between a website and e-com a bit later, if you like. So you're like, okay, no, this is probably the right category to start in, and let's start there. I remember giving my first business plan in 2014, and I said, look, we need to get to 10% of the business. They're about $1 billion retailer. E-com penetration then was less than 2%. Yeah. I think we used to do, when I joined in 2014, I think we were doing less than 10 million riyals a year online. And when I showed this 10% business plan, the finance team just laughed me out the room. They're like, who is this guy? Yeah. One from England. No one understands what he says. He looks like he's sort of Muslim, but he talks differently and very weird. And he wants to bloody create 10% of our business online. If this is Saudi, it's not going to happen. That's not the culture. It's not what we do. 5 years later, we delivered 500 million riyals online. So I think, there was a lot of infrastructure that changed, which obviously helped. This was pre-COVID, so it wasn't the COVID acceleration. But, at that time, we couldn't even get MADA debit cards to work online. We went through those transformations. So I think there was a lot of infrastructure that suddenly accelerated the growth. And then we've obviously had the COVID accelerations. You've had, whenever Amazon lands in any market, whether that's India or the GCC, the overall market grows because they just bring that exponential growth into the market. So I think, look, there's been a lot of infrastructural changes, very young economy, very young population. So they just adopt these technologies much quicker. And we've not had to go through the same learnings that the older economies had to go through when it came to digital and e-com adoption.
Have we lived up to it though? Do you think we've achieved, if you look back now, say you're 11 years here, because I look back at mine and I see the peaks and troughs in the growth. I see the lack of understanding or adaptation or just implementation of certain things. And I put it down to key stakeholders in certain organizations just not having or not getting their head around what it actually means.
Yeah.
And therefore it doesn't really fulfill its full potential, or it hasn't in previous years. It probably is starting to now. Am I seeing it the way that you're seeing it, or have you seen it differently?
I think the challenge is because we don't live and work in our home markets anymore.
Yeah.
We sometimes probably have a hazy view of how good or bad they are.
That's true.
So the comparables aren't fair anymore. So I find it really difficult to compare life today here to what it would be like back in the UK today. Because I don't know, right? I've been out for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to potential is there's always potential to do better. There's always potential to do more. So you're never ever going to achieve the full potential of digital or whatever it is you're going to do, right? Because you can always strive for more. I think the progress that this region has made has been amazing. We live in a growth economy. So whether it's different industries, whether it's retail, whether it's digital, I think this place is absolutely amazing. And I think the strides that these countries have made. I was just watching something on Etihad Rail, and we're going off topic, but and UAE doesn't have a national rail system where most of the countries of a similar maturity do. But next year they're going to roll out Etihad Rail. And if you've ever seen anything about it, you're just like, wow. So I think this is a economy that is, you don't want to call it a developing economy because I think it's more than that, but it's still developing. And therefore that potential will continue to be enjoyed, continue to be unleashed over time.
Can we talk talent and can we talk teams?
Yeah, sure.
Can we talk scaling businesses and growing your teams and being able to acquire or identify and attract the right talent here versus abroad? Or like when you're hiring, is your first mindset, find me someone who's on the ground, who's got boots on the ground, who understands the landscape, or just find me someone who's got the right skill set, who understands the execution, who can bring the strategy and have that sort of strong input in my team? Or is it just like case by case?
I think you could call it fortunate, but I think I've been quite fortunate that my career has generally been about building teams and departments. I've never really taken a job where you went into a large e-com marketing function and you just needed to keep it going or adjust it. It's generally been about building ground up. And I remember, one of my early jobs at Dunelm in the UK, where they were basically a home furnishings retailer, so very similar to Home Centre. And it was very much, look, we've got something small, but we need you to build it up. So we went in with the structure, so this is what I need. But I said, look, I need heavyweights. And I didn't mean heavyweight people. I meant heavyweight with experience.
Yeah, of course.
Because essentially, you need people who are better than you.
Yeah.
You need people who add more value than you do in their area of specialism.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I still think is so important till today. So, if you are recruiting your direct line, if you like, first of all, they need to be heavyweights when it comes to experience, specialism. On the other hand, you can buy in those skills effectively, but when it comes to the rest of the organization and those guys as well, but more junior people, you need to find the guys with the right personality, passion, and hustle. So they can come locally, they can come from abroad, and they can come from internships. Like we've got a really big, I believe a lot in junior recruitment at entry level through internships. So we have like a 6-month intern program. A significant chunk of those guys get offered full-time jobs at the end, and many of them have now gone on to become team leaders. So they have brands that they manage from a marketing or e-com perspective. So I think it's very much about, heavyweight experience at a more senior level. People who have done this at scale, and I think that was the challenge here 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, is that you could find people, but they've not done it at scale. Because some people's scale is not really what we mean by scale. But then still finding those guys with the right personality, passion, and accountability and values is really important as well.
But do you see local experience being something that is valuable to you, or you don't care where they come from?
No, I think it depends on the job, right? Does your head of tech need local experience?
No.
Does he really need to understand the difference between Kuwait and Qatar? No, he doesn't. Does your business analyst? Not really. But so it really depends on the role, to be honest. And it depends on the balance of the team that you've got in-house. Like if you've got all of your guys have no regional understanding, it's going to be a challenge, right? And on the other hand, if they're all regional, not that they're all regional, but if they haven't... quite often, like you see that, we might have some departments where we've done a lot of junior recruitment and they've grown in, but actually they only know what they know. And at certain points, you need to have injections of talent who have done other things in other businesses in other ways, so they can bring that freshness.
There's a lot of talk over the last probably 6-12 months about the region being an overhyped, overpriced sort of market when it comes to talent, and people are starting looking offshore to actually build their teams, their tech teams and so forth, right? Because, we see it firsthand. A lot of businesses come to us and say, let's build our team out in our creative team in Lebanon, in Egypt, Jordan, whatever it may be, right? Because it's just a lot more cost effective. And the people that are on the ground have been sort of paid too much, and therefore their salary demands and their expectations are nowhere near what the real market is actually saying. Do you feel the pinch when you're running your teams and building your businesses over the years where you think, I really like this candidate, but why on earth does he or she think that is worth 15K more than what the market is actually saying?
I think, I don't think it's a problem that's unique to the region. So this concept of, talent's expensive, we can get talent offshore, we can get talent off, in other places in the world is not a new phenomenon.
It's not,
right?
But the viewpoint around it is that the people here maybe don't live up to that price tag, and that's and
maybe you need to do a better job of recruiting for your clients, isn't it?
Well,
look, I think it goes back to that point that we made a little bit earlier around. Well, I think there's two different things, right? I think you get what you pay for. First of all, right, and the employer needs to be very clear in his head is what is he looking for in terms of that recruitment, right? What is the quality or the value that he wants from that resource? It's not to say that you can't get, the same quality for slightly less. You can. But I remember even back in the UK, going back 20 years ago, you could recruit someone at this level or at this price, and you could either get people who have actually done this 3 times before. You could recruit at a slightly lower level, and they've never done it at scale. What do you want to do? And I think there are those very similar examples. I think the challenge is that this market has an influx of talent and people that want to work here and people that are willing to work for less than others. And that usually comes at a cost or a price. Now, some businesses are willing to absorb that because they probably have 80% of what both candidates are going to do is probably going to be the same. And if they can do that for less, that's fine. I think the concept of building teams offshore is just very common practice. We used to outsource to Vietnam 25 years ago, our tech teams. So I think continuously searching for value is a really important part of building any profitable, value creative organization. It's
interesting to hear your perspective on that, because it's so easy to buy into the negative hype around any topic, right? And because of everyone having a platform these days and everyone having a voice and everyone being able to voice their opinion on every single topic known to man, from the Coldplay video to everything else in between, right? Donald Trump comments, you see it all, and then everyone voices their opinion like they're a resident expert. So hearing you look at it from a completely different lens to the majority who actually like to jump on that bandwagon and say, yeah, everyone's expensive in Dubai, and yeah, they're not worth the money we have to pay for, and that's why we have to go to these other countries, because we can't afford to pay these people who aren't even good at their jobs. So hearing you say it from see it from a completely different lens is actually quite refreshing.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just I'm getting old. Yeah, I'm getting old.
I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, I'm getting old. Maybe it's just I'm getting old. But I think there's also something about it's like different stages for different ages, right?
Yeah.
And like you can understand, like, you know, when you're 25 in Dubai, maybe single, you've moved here, it's not cheap, right? It's not cheap, and therefore money is your number one priority. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with people moving on and jumping jobs every 12, 18 months, 2 years for a certain period of time, because they need that financial compensation to feel secure and to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
But I think then you also see that there's a different group of people in Dubai, for example, to be specific, that want stability. They want work-life balance where they can actually pick and drop their kids to school. Which
is the most fun part in Dubai, to school drop off and pick up, right?
Yeah, I don't. You might find it fun. I don't find it fun. I try and avoid it as much as possible, to be honest.
We all do, mate.
And therefore, I think a lot of people in Dubai can earn a lot more money in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, but they choose not to.
Yeah.
And they choose the work-life balance over the monetary benefit. So I think every case is very different, and often it's more about the motivation, I think, rather than the perception.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier website e-commerce.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's I won't say a debate, but there's been a misunderstanding that if you just create a website for your business, you all of a sudden got an e-commerce platform, and away you go. Help me squash this. Help me educate the masses.
Yeah, again, I just sound really old, right? I remember
first.com,
probably what, 2004 maybe, so 20-ish years ago.
Yeah.
I was working for a business, e-com strategy, and my boss is like, no. You need to change the first slide. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Because we're going to call it, this is not a website, it's a sales channel. You don't understand. These people do not understand. I'm like, what do you mean they don't understand? And to this day, there are still so many people within organizations, execs less, of course, pure plays and startups get it, is that they still don't really understand that, you know, a website is not a sales channel. They think that you can just throw a website up without an ecosystem, without an infrastructure. They don't understand the discovery element that it has when it comes to omnichannel. They don't understand the investment that's needed when it comes to customer experience, last mile, fulfillment, stock, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, websites are static things. They're not sales channels. They don't create value. They're not engines. They don't drive revenue. They don't drive EBITDA. If you want to drive EBITDA, you need an engine. And quite often we used to, again, in the early days, I used to make this analogy of, well, what do you want? Do you want a bike, a car, or an aeroplane? And yeah, the bike's probably the website. The car's probably the e-com channel.
Yeah. Double your revenue in 90 days. What's your first move?
I think I'll call you all safe and look for a job, to be honest, mate. Double your online revenue in 90 days. Thank God I've not had that question. Look, I think it's quite a challenging question, and it's quite a nice challenge.
Yeah.
But I think now with experience, you would probably ask a couple of questions back rather than go run away and try and build a PowerPoint, right? You know, is it about revenue or is it about profitability? Because they're two very different things, right? And then what's really important to the business? Is it revenue or is it value and profitability? And I think if you look at the strategies of businesses here who have done it really well most recently, I mean, look at Kita. I mean, they're not chasing value. They're chasing enormous revenue growth, right? With enormous cash spend, but their strategy across all the different elements, whether it's, driver acquisition, brand acquisition, customer acquisition, has been immense. You look at Noon and they get a lot of flack. And, I don't think short-term profitability has ever been their goal. But online revenue-wise, they've done an amazing job.
Absolutely.
And they continue to pivot, they continue to learn, they continue to change. And Noon Minutes has changed everyone's lives in Dubai. And the amount of revenue that they're driving is insane. So I think some of those playbooks are really good when it comes to revenue growth.
You mentioned you ask questions. When did you learn to ask those questions? How far into your career, into your leadership career, did you say, hang on a second, I'm not going to be the soldier that gets told what to do and I'm going to just do it without asking why, to try and understand? Because there are so many good operators in the world, in great businesses, great brands, who are just doers and they don't really ask why.
Yeah.
But you saying, I'd ask a couple of questions, was it always that way with you, that you were always inquisitive to say, I need to understand the why before I actually start executing? Or did you learn that over time?
Yeah, I think I've always had, I think it was probably too much when I was younger at work. I always had this habit of asking questions.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where that comes from, but I was quite fortunate in that I always had that. It always came naturally to me, to such an extent where early on in my career, I had to tailor it a little bit and work out when's the right time to ask the right question. So that's just served me really well, I think. It's actually just something that I've had from a very young age, and I was probably made aware of it. It's like, it's a great asset, but you also need to find the right time to ask the right question, rather than just asking questions without taking into account the room, the audience, and actually putting that person under pressure, because sometimes that's not the right thing to do either, right? So I think you need to balance when you ask the question and to who.
Do you try and teach it to your team? Do you see it as like because
I think when I moved to the region, again in Saudi, you speak very fast when you come from the UK, and you have to try and train yourself to speak much slower.
Yeah.
And Saudi 10, 11 years ago was very different to Saudi today,
Absolutely.
right? And you'd have the team with you, and you would say to the team, have you understood what I've said? And they'd all say yes. And then after a while, I realised, say, well, actually, what did I say?
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know. Can I swear? Oh, shit. Right. So then I learned to actually ask questions based on what I've actually been preaching about for the last 10, 15 minutes.
To confirm.
Yeah. And actually that enabled them to actually then ask the questions that they want to ask to clarify what the discussion had been. So that was quite an interesting example of asking questions, not to someone about what I want them to tell me about, but it's like, did you understand what I was talking about?
It's crucial. I mean, it's part of your leadership journey, right? Like, you need to be able to sort of extract out of them rather than just give the orders and delegate.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it down like a different path. Like in my early years, and I've mentioned it on a couple of other episodes, my early years of management were an absolute car crash beyond belief. Like the first one, we actually shut down the branch, like ran it into the ground. It was an absolute shit show, and it was all my fault. Like, I look back now in hindsight and say there was no one else to blame for that except for me. I was drunk with power. I was abusive. I thought it was a full-time locker room where I could just give people a spray and just berate them and belittle them, and I thought that would be motivating, because growing up as a wannabe athlete, I liked my coach to take me aside and give me an absolute earful about how bad I was in the first half, right? Like that would make me go out and just run through walls, because I wouldn't want to let him down for the second half, right? Watching TV shows, in my early sort of to mid-20s, like Entourage, and you see someone like an Ari Gold who literally I actually did the thing that he did once. I actually fired someone by writing "Get the F out."
No way.
And got him out of my business, which is just humiliating when I think about it now. Like, so many years on, 15, 20 years on, right? But, you think management is one way, and it's one thing, which is you're the boss, and then whatever you say goes. And over time, you learn that, and part of that is teaching him to ask questions and so forth. Was there a moment for yourself in leadership where you thought, this is not who I want to be as a leader? And was there a moment where you thought, this is where I am? This is the kind of leader that I want to be?
Yeah, look, it's all about change, right? And we all evolve over time. And I remember quite early on in my career, and very early on when I came here, I think, to the region, I used to shout and swear a lot. And
that surprises me because I know you personally, and you're such a calm, humble man.
And see, I don't know like, how sarcastic you've been right now, but and that was because again I had one boss, and he was amazing, but he used to shout and swear.
Yeah.
And I felt that was the only way that you could get certain things done, right? And I think calm beats chaos every time.
Yeah.
Calm definitely beats chaos, right? And I think when you move to this region, you realize that it's far more about communication.
Yeah.
It's far more about patience.
Yeah. Anger gets you nowhere here.
Anger doesn't get you anywhere here. Although I did get very angry yesterday with a partner, but that was a bit unfortunate. So it does happen sometimes, right? So look, I think we all evolve over time, right? But I think what really adds value is different experiences, working in different organizations, working for different people. You get to a certain stage where you learn your own style, and you can take the best from those different experiences. I think sometimes when people have been in maybe one organization for 25 years, they've just limited themselves to only one way. Yeah. Of course, you can do your own online training and learning and whatever. But I think being in different organizations under different leaders within different cultures adds so much value. So, you know, I think you can take a lot from those experiences.
Do you take a lot from the fact, or put a lot of value in working in multiple regions and countries? And because I believe what I've learned in the 10 years here, even though I saw myself as successful in Australia and working with amazing global brands and having senior positions in those businesses, I don't think I would have achieved what I have achieved in this country if I stayed home in Oz, because of just the different dynamics and the growth that you get from moving abroad and having to sort of, learn about yourself.
No, I think many of us feel very similar. And I often say, the guys that move over here after having had a specialist career in a certain field at a certain level, they're probably not going to learn too much technical skills in terms of what you've done in Oz as a HR specialist or as a recruiter or executive search. But now what you're able to do is use that experience and skill set at a much higher exposure level. So what do I love about working in this region is the exposure that I get to be able to use my skill set that I've got. Whereas in the UK, that exposure is very hard to get. And I think that's the growth that we all enjoy, because we're getting to use that experience and skill set at a much higher level, at an exposure with people and with businesses that we probably wouldn't have been exposed to because 100%. Of the opportunities that are available back home versus a growing economy over here.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you have, I think your oldest is 19, 20?
She's 19, yeah.
19?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been a dad for a very long time.
Yeah, 19 years.
Yeah, so that's I have a very strong link between leadership in business and being a parent. And I always make this sort of comment with my youngest child, who's turning 6 next month, that there's an internal joke that I am that he's my favorite. And my response to that is he's not. I'm a better parent now than what I was 10 years ago. So I probably...
And you probably have more time.
Yeah, so I know how to engage with him as I was, compared to my oldest, who I felt like he was the first kid, so I had to just be the dad who provided and set the rules and kept him at arm's length without having too much of a rapport with him, because I need to set those sort of boundaries. Similar to what I was explaining about when I was like just a raw young leader in business, that I thought the whole dictatorship sort of, my way or the highway type sort of rapport back and forth was the only way forward. But then as you grow and then you just have those experiences, and then he was older, and then all of a sudden I have my third child who's the youngest, you grow from that, right? Do you always look and say, well, I'm growing in my role, I'm growing as a leader. Do I take that leadership skill and put it into my home? Do I take my leadership skill in my home as a parent and bring it into my business? Do you have that correlation?
I think we'd probably all love to.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we can or not, because the problem is at home you've got a wife, right? Who, with respect, says, whatever works for you at work and stuff, it's a different playground at home. But I think the thing that I enjoy about sort of work, and I think we mentioned earlier sports psychology, right? And we'll talk about family in a minute, is just this concept of marginal gains, continuous improvements. I love to watch MMA, big football fan. And it's just this desire to keep improving, doing better, get faster,
1% gains.
Get stronger.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
retail's very, very similar, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how great a year you've had, next year we need to do more.
Yeah.
You say you're only as good as your last football match.
Yeah.
In retail, you're only as good as yesterday's sales or last week's sales or last month's sales.
Yeah. Same
So this
for us.
whole concept of self-improvement, it's something that just matches my personality so well, or I've just grown into that life. I think trying then to take that into home is quite challenging. I find it quite challenging.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Because I think we're so used to it. I've been used to this retail thing for 25 years, right? Where it's day on day, week on week, and just built with it. But home isn't necessarily built in that same way. I think it's not necessarily, right? I think there are obviously some families that are very sporty families, and their culture is very different. So for me, taking work into home isn't an easy fit. It's not an easy fit for me, or for our work-life sort of home balance. I think when I used to look at my dad as an example, right? Dad was a GP, really hard worker, really honest guy, and he used to work hard.
Yeah.
And I think I took that as something that was important in life, right? Is that you have to work hard to get to wherever you want to get to. I didn't sort of realize it early on, but at a certain point in life, I realized that, nothing comes easy and nothing comes cheap.
Yeah.
So I think you can take those things into work, and you have a perception that, actually, if my kids see me get up early every day, they may not want to do it right now because they're just at that age group. So when I was 14, I wanted to sleep in every day and so on and so on. But they'll take those things with them. So I think it's probably not just about bringing in your work leadership traits into the home environment, but it's also you as a human, right? What are your values? How do you behave day in, day out? Are you lazy? Do you let the maid do everything? Or do you actually pick your own plates up? Pick your own plates up. I'll pick my plates up. Yeah, I'll pick my plates up. No, we're clearing the table.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think those are important things as well, as rather than just the career aspects and the growth aspects, because everyone will do their own thing in the end.
I've never been a big believer of the educational system because it just wasn't for me. ADHD, OCD, borderline dyslexic, so didn't really have a good time in school, in classroom settings. The way that they taught back then probably is the same way now anyway, because it hasn't really evolved. So I see my role at home similar to a role in business, which is like I'm almost like a coach, like a life coach for my kids. I sit with them and I ask them questions that are very open and get them talking about what they like, what they enjoy, what they struggle with, and try and steer them towards an answer where they can come up with it themselves, so they're not being told what to do. And as my two oldest are getting older, like they're 10 and 9, they're actually having these really good back and forth with me now. and I'm really enjoying it because I'm seeing their completely different personalities in my son and my daughter, in how they see life and what they see value in, and what they see themselves in, like strengths. Like some of them, one of them can be quite delusional and think that they are absolutely brilliant at everything. And I try and, sort of still let them believe that, but try and bring them back a little bit with some humility, right? And I do the same in work. Like, I want people to believe in themselves. I think the mentality around being successful is probably the biggest hurdle you can overcome. Like, think about like a superstar athlete, like a Ronaldo or a Messi or a Mo Salah. For now, because like obviously
contentious
with what's
week, innit?
happening, right?
Yeah.
So
I thought you might bring that up somewhere.
Why not? Yeah. Why not, right? But these elite performers, they have egos, they have this confidence, this self-belief that is unrivaled, right? And it's from a very young age that they need to be super successful, right? Now, I know 100, 1,000 people that have done more than what I've done in my career. But I look at my dad, who was a taxi driver, and he struggled and worked his absolute ass off for 2 decades of severe migraines and 25 tablets a day to try and get through the day to pay for us, to give us what we had, which was a very, very good life in Oz, right? And I think to myself, the one thing he told me was, you don't need to be the smartest in the room, you just need to be the hardest worker in the room. So I don't need you to be like a surgeon. Just do your best. If you go home thinking, I could have done more today, but you didn't, that's on you. So you could have got that extra 1% gain today, but you didn't because you were careless or because you were lazy. And I try and instill that in my kids and also my teams over the years, is that you can control your narrative. What happens afterwards, customers don't buy, things fall down, IT crashes, whatever it may be, it's out of your hands. But if you can control your narrative and push towards those little miniature gains on a daily basis, then you're winning in life. Just try and put that through there.
Yeah, so look, I would agree with what you say. I'm not sure if the new generation would necessarily agree with what we are both saying.
Because they don't want to work hard, is what you're saying?
But no, not because they don't want to work hard. I think they are probably much more attuned to finding... It's not to say finding smarter or faster ways isn't the right thing to do.
That's right.
But I think as soon as you start giving the impression that hard work means effort, it means toil, it means commitment, you start to turn off this younger generation to some respects. I don't want to sound like, anti-generationist, if you like, but I think there is this feeling that I get more from family and kids and whatever is that the younger generation are just not built with the same level of commitment and discipline that we were brought up with, which it may just be a new time, right? It may just be a new generation and we're just being too harsh on it. But no, I was brought up in a very similar environment where, dad's practices were like, you never spend more than what you earn and you should spend 20% less than what you earn. Hard work is the most important thing in life, right? Like that's what you need to do, whether it's studies, whether it's work, whether it's family time. You need to put in the hours. I remember I did an internship at Jaguar many, many years ago. And it was in the purchasing department and I was working on exhausts. Didn't want to work on exhausts.
So random.
Yeah, very random. And fortunately, you pick up these funny habits. I still look at exhausts every time I'm driving. Yeah. But anyway, so I applied for a job in global marketing or something, and the purchasing director came over, and he said to me, "Look, I know you want to, apply for this job in marketing, blah blah." But he said, "Look, let me give you a bit of advice. It's not the guy who looks the best or talks the best that succeeds in life. It's the guy that works the hardest." He goes, "I'm not telling you to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 8 o'clock in the evening. It's the guy who delivers the most, delivers twice the profit, twice the sales, half the cost in half the time. So you've got to work quick, you've got to work smart, but you've got to deliver more. And I think it's how you do that is what drives your success.
Yeah, it's that balance. It's that balance of, so working hard doesn't mean work long hours for me.
No.
So for 12, 15 years in recruitment, our industry is so archaic in so many ways. It's, I'm gonna wait until my boss leaves and then I'll leave. But I'm gonna sit on my desk for the last hour and a half doing absolutely sweet F all. But hey, I'm working late, and then in the old days, I'll probably send an email at 7:30 p.m. to my boss to say, hey, do that sort of stuff, right? And clocking into that, and then realize, no, we don't need that. I believe in our industry, people probably do 4, maybe 5 hours a day of genuine revenue generating activity each day. That's it. They do not do any more than that. There is no way. If you put in the office banter, the
breaks,
procrastinating around what they're going to do, just mucking around, water cooler, coffee, downstairs, smoke breaks, whatever it may be, anything else in between, in and out of meetings, just ridiculous internal meetings for no particular reason, right? You waste 3, 4, 5 hours a day. But in those 3, 4 to 5 hours of revenue generating activity, aren't you absolutely working at your optimum? Are you, to quote the new generation coming through, are you working in the most smartest and the most efficient way with that time? Because I don't expect 8 hours, because I've learned to know that it's absolutely impossible for anyone in our industry to work 100% 8 hours in a efficient way. But give me 4 or 5 of hardcore hours where you're actually doing your numbers and you're actually doing what you're meant to be doing, then I can understand of you having a laugh for 3 hours and 4 hours. And I'll actually encourage it, because I'm one of the biggest drivers of that sort of culture when it comes to having a laugh. So that hard work, that's what I mean by real hard work, is that you've actually gone home tired, because 4 or 5 hours of revenue generating activity is tiresome. You know what I mean? So that's how I would highlight the hard work more than anything else.
Yeah, and you've delivered something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the point,
result,
right? Is there's a clear result and outcome from 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of work, whatever that is.
Yeah, like I think back to when I started 2002, all right, and it was like the worst culture on earth, but I still take a lot from that 2 or 3 years, which was we had to stand up and we weren't allowed to sit down until we picked up 2 new vacancies. And make call after call after call, very boiler room-ish type sort of, culture, right? Stand up, dial with your long cord on your landline and just dial the number and then call up and try and pick up some jobs and try and sell in some candidates. And if you got a job on, you ding a bell and that's one on the board. Yep. And you weren't allowed to sit down until you picked up 2 in the morning session and then 2 in the afternoon session. What does that teach you? It teaches you that there's no time to muck around. And you need to be smart about who you're calling. You need to make sure that you know your script about what you're saying and that your delivery and your tone of voice is on point. And then you actually go and make those phone calls. And you have to make them. And then the biggest one is you can take rejection, because the people are going to slam the phone on you.
But how do you teach that discipline, and how do you teach that rigor and professionalism and discipline today? So
teaching the discipline is probably harder. The understanding of the methodology around what you need to do to be successful, I think, is easier to teach, because you show them that as long as you do this, it'll work more often than not, because it's a fail-safe, right? Like it will always work as long as you do the numbers. Like we always say, as much as KPIs have a negative connotation to it, if you apply yourself and do the numbers, it will work, no matter what. If you're great at your job and you do the numbers, then you'll obviously be a higher achiever. But if you do the work, at least you'll do enough. You'll make money, you'll make commission, you'll make revenue, and whatever it may be. So that can be taught. The discipline, however, is how do you sync it to something that's personal to them, to make that some sort of relative thing, to motivate them to actually hold on to that.
And do you find in your industry that's changing with the younger Gen Z recruiters and generation?
I feel like now I'm the guest, but it's we have a problem in our industry that people don't want to work.
Generally, right? I think it's not just your industry.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And because it's such a sales-driven culture, and people like to say it's not sales, recruitment sales. We have to call you up as a client and ask you whether or not you need our help. Imagine, like you're not calling us. We're actually calling you and saying, hey, I heard you might be looking for someone, and I have someone who's just sitting in my car and I can drive them to you, sort of thing, right? And that's just like the hard part. So we need to be able to do this, and people don't want to do this. They do it online, they send messages, and they wait for a response. And I was taught in my first training session, like 2002, the most dangerous position for any salesperson is the waiting and hoping position. When you think that you've done enough, when you've sent out some messages to people, and then you're waiting for a response, sitting there crossing your fingers saying, I hope they respond. Well, what are you doing next?
And then you complain when they say they ghost you.
They ghost you, right? They don't respond to you. And what are you doing next? Who are you speaking to in that business to then refer you to that person? Who are you? What outreach tools are you using, or what data scraping tools are you using to be able to find those person's contact details, to contact them directly via phone or email or WhatsApp or anything like that? What are you doing apart from the bare basics? And that's the discipline, and that's the drive around success. And that's what I think as leaders, people forget to try and teach that or instill that in their teams more than anything else. High performance cultures, sports cultures, they instill this thing where we are one, right? There was a team in Oz, a football team in Oz in 1995. I was 15 years old. My sister was the sports psychologist for 3 of the players, right? And they shared some insights with the team. They went pretty much undefeated. They lost like 2 games for the entire season. They won 16 games in a row to win the premiership, right? And their mantra was, even during the game, when there would be like a bit of a tackle and a bit of a scuffle and they'd have a pause to get everyone up, they'd pick each other up off the ground and say, we can't lose. We can't lose. That was their statement for their club for that season. We can't lose. Pick them up, we can't lose. And it was that conviction that everyone had, that we are not going to lose this game. No matter what happens, no matter what's going on, the dynamics, we're 4 goals behind, whatever it may be, we can't lose. Pick yourself up, get your head in the game, and do your part, and everyone plays their role. Companies are the same, right? As long as I do my role as a co-founder, as long as the other person does their role as a consultant, as a director, as a marketing person, as a social media person, everyone does their role and holds themselves accountable to that role, then why can't we be high performers? But if I'm the only one, or if I'm the one who's not doing the role and I'm dragging everyone else down, then we're not a high performing culture.
Yeah, look, I think that's why I love retail and that sports psychology mix, because it's exactly the same thing, right? It's like, how do you improve? How do you get better week after week? You're part of a team. But how do you bring that back into the home environment, like you asked me?
My kids are taught from a very young age that success is determined by what they are happy with, not by society. So if they're comfortable with what they're achieving, then that's their success, because they're content, right? They can't do something. I was motivated to become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer because that was the old ethnic immigrant way in Australia, right? You had to become one of those things. I should have dropped out of school at 15. I just wasn't feeling it. But I got into mechanical engineering. Can you imagine me as a mechanical engineer doing physics and chemistry and all these advanced maths and so forth, which I was forced to do because that was...
Yeah.
I was living out someone else's dream, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to achieve
I was supposed
goals.
to have been an optician.
I can imagine having like a dad as a doctor. You obviously would have been put on that path, right? So it's difficult. So you create a sort of belief and a sort of mindset of what do you want to do, and as long as you choose whatever you want to do, but just be the best at it.
Yeah,
be the best version of you every single day.
Well, it's like they're saying it, leave it all out in the ring.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think whether it's, like you said, you're making those sales calls on a daily basis, towards the end of Friday, at the end of a tough week, you want to make sure you've left it all in the ring.
Why regret not doing something?
Yeah.
I'd rather regret trying hard and falling on my ass 10 times over than having to regret I had that chance, that opportunity in that business, and I just didn't give it my all because I was lazy. Imagine.
Any regrets in your career?
Many, absolutely.
What would be the biggest regret? Or the biggest opportunity you didn't say yes to from a positive perspective rather than a regret? Which is the one thing that you think, actually, maybe I should have said yes to that one. Maybe I should have done that
When
one.
I worked for Randstad, they're a $14 billion business, in Oz, and I was running arguably the largest team in the whole of Victoria, right? A lot of people, 180 odd sort of people. I had too big of an ego. My name was up in lights. The growth was just amazing. The team culture was just out of this world. It was amazing, right? Everyone wanted to work in my team. And I didn't want to wait and play the company game to become the number one guy. They told me it was like 10 years away. I was like, 10 years? I'm on the cusp of something great here. Like I'm 2 years away. And they're like, no, there are so many people ahead of you.
Gotta earn the scars.
Yeah, like these people have been here for a long time. It's that longevity. Like in the business, you've been here for 2 or 3 years. You've had some wins, well done. But you haven't done it for 5 and 7 and 10 years. And I threw my toys out of the pram. I'm out of here. I'm not doing that. No way. But I got a lot from them, right? But like it's still, if I look back and say, how do I handle certain situations? Could have handled that better. I had a falling out with my superiors and just could have handled it better. If I had the level-headedness now, if I had the maturity now, if I had the spirituality that I have now to be able to sort of humble myself and realize that I'm not everything that I thought that I was, then I'd handle it better.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yeah, I was thinking about it on the way into it. There was when I...
Why? Because you regretted coming onto the podcast?
No. Just in terms of where the conversation might go. But no, I think first of all, alhamdulillah, right? I've been really lucky.
Yeah.
Really fortunate. Worked for some great companies, had amazing managers, and have learnt a lot, right? And it's been great for our family. But I always think there was I'd accepted the job at Azadia. And we were actually in the transition. So I think we were moving here. It was like the week that we were moving here. I got a call from Alibaba. And I had a couple of interviews with them. And they had offered me the MD's job in Pakistan for, I forgot what they were called now, the Alibaba business that they had in Karachi. And that was the first time that I would have probably gone into pure e-commerce. So it was marketplace, right?
Yeah.
I forgot what the brand's called then. Daraz. So it's like the Amazon of Pakistan, but Alibaba had just acquired them from Rocket Internet.
Yeah.
And that would have just taken my career in a completely different angle. But that's always when I go like, that would have just changed a lot of things. But
of course,
from work-life balance through to career. So that was an interesting one. But I think in terms of regrets, I think I've been really fortunate. I'll say alhamdulillah. God bless. We've been really, really lucky.
We're running out of time, so I do want to just race through a couple lightning round questions for you, okay? This is what we do with every guest, just to give them sort of 1-2 word sort of answers, okay? What's the first app that you open when you wake up in the morning?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is first? Wow. I've noticed you've been a bit of a sort of serial poster these days as well. Some content going on, which is nice.
Yeah, it's actually become a bit of a hobby, to be honest.
Nice.
More than anything else.
That's good.
Yeah.
What's a retail brand that is underrated and deserves more hype?
Lefties.
Okay. What's the one thing you always check on a website before buying?
The eye as a shopper.
Yeah.
Price.
Okay. What's the weirdest online purchase you've made?
Weirdest online purchase I've ever made.
And keep it PG.
I have no idea, man. We just buy consumables. We buy retail. We buy FMCG. Weirdest online purchase. No, I can't think of a weird online purchase, man.
What's your
What's your weirdest online purchase?
I said keep it PG. Okay.
It's all right. You can hint. You can be subtle.
What's your professional superpower?
Look, I think when I was sort of like growing up, leaving jobs, you always assume it's your technical skills, that digital or e-com. But I think when I left one of my jobs in the UK, the feedback that I got after I left was team management and leadership. And when I left my last job in Saudi, I was told it was accountability. So, which surprised me actually.
That's a good one.
Which really, really surprised me. I didn't think that's what
a really good one.
My CEOs would have said, but they said accountability and team management and leadership.
Last one. What's the one gadget you can't live without?
Don't want to say the phone because everyone says the phone, right? So, what would be your next gadget after the phone? Sauna, my infrared sauna.
Oh, look at you! Yeah. Well, you got your own personal infrared sauna.
The family bought me an infrared sauna as a birthday gift about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Same price as an iPhone, man.
Oh, you don't have to justify it, mate. It's all right.
Yeah, same price as an iPhone. But yeah, I probably
Okay.
infrared sauna. I was in it this morning. Yeah, before I came here. Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Saj, this has been great fun, mate.
Thank you.
You've done really well.
Oh, thank you.
Much all the.
So you'll send me a recommendation on LinkedIn now, won't you?
Absolutely. I'll start liking your posts too.
No,
Appreciate
thanks for
you
the
coming
invite.
on, mate.
Thank you. All the
Appreciate you,
best.
mate.
Thanks.